Pete Sepp of the National Taxpayers Union. Now, Pete, you spend your days and hours and minutes going over all these figures. The unfairness of it, the fact that even California, it's easy to pick on California because they spend money so wisely very often, but they're not getting a good return on their investment, are they?
Well, based on the taxes they pay, there are a lot of reasons why you see these disparities. For one thing, a lot of states get a whole lot more federal spending their way because they have military installations, federal science labs. That's certainly the case with New Mexico. On the other end of the scale, the disparities are largely because the people in those states are getting fleeced for federal income taxes. Look at Connecticut, for example. They have a very high concentration of wealthy folks, and so they're always going to throw a huge amount into the federal coffers.
Now, Juan Enriquez, on the other hand, if I'm living in Texas, a state that has no income tax, no state income tax, that governs its affairs pretty well, Governor Perry seems to balance the books pretty well, and I see my federal taxes, the money going to the folks behind me, going from there to California, I'm upset because I think that I'm helping to bail out profligate spenders. Is that causing disunity in our United States of America?
Well, I mean, what it can lead to is an untied States of America as opposed to a United States of America, and that's actually happening in Europe. 3/4 of the flags that you see in Europe today were not there about 58 years ago. And the nasty little secret is it's the rich regions that leave first, not the ethnically oppressed or religiously complicated. The first part of Yugoslavia to leave was the rich part. The parts of Italy that want to leave are the northern Italian parts. And the problem that we've got today is a whole series of places are generating a lot of wealth that other places are spending.
But you actually, Juan, believe that we could have secession from the Union by states that are upset about this? I mean, after all, we fought a civil war that we thought decided that issue long ago.
Look, I'm not advocating it. I'm advocating the opposite. And I'm saying before it gets to be too late, before we reach a situation like that, we have to address these issues. Let me give you just 2 data points. The first is, why would we assume continuity in a country like the United States where there's never been a president of the country buried under the same flag he was born under? We've had a constant series of changes in the number of states in this, and until there's a president born after 1959 that dies without changes in the flag, there will never have been a president buried under the same flag he was born under. The trend line has been for the U.S. to get bigger. The trend line is to have more states, not less. But the trend line in almost every other place in the world has been to triple the number of borders in the last 58 years, which is the reason why the UN has 3 times as many people. And if you look at Europe today, the Scots, the Catalans, the Basques, the Northern Italians, parts of Netherlands, parts of Belgium, parts of Italy are having these debates saying, we're generating most of the wealth, why are we paying for the rest of it?
But Al Lewis, when I think of those other countries and nationalities and groups, ethnic groups in other parts like Spain, I mean, in Spain, they have their own separate language, the Basque and everything. In the United States, aren't we a much more unified nation despite all of our problems with disparate spending?
Well, you're absolutely right on that, Dave. I think we're one big happy family, and I don't think that people are sitting around wondering about which state is getting the most in federal revenues. The fact of the matter is, like you look at a state like New Mexico, I am paying for the federal government to do research. That's what I'm paying for. The fact that they chose New Mexico to do it in doesn't necessarily mean it's a ripoff for me here in Colorado. That research is still getting done, and I'm paying for it. You know, it's the same thing with institutions of higher learning. It's the same thing with highways. Some of these states are so poor, you make one highway through there, and of course, you know, the highway costs more than these people are going to pay in taxes. Yeah. Well, there are just inequities in life, Dave, and that's the way it is. This is a complicated equation.
There are inequities, but on the other hand, Christina, I do see a lot of people that are really upset about the fact that their hard-earned tax dollars are going to some profligate governments out there, namely California, New Jersey, and New York.
Background looks good, Kurt.
You're absolutely right. They may not be thinking writ large who gets the most revenue from the government. That's not what they're thinking about. But when they are stuck in traffic on the way home, they do get frustrated that their state isn't getting as much in federal transportation dollars as the state over, and that might be due to political clout. Here in Illinois, we only get 75 cents back for every dollar we send to the federal government. So they may not be thinking about it in abstract terms, but you can darn well be sure that they're angry when their projects don't get funded because you've got a politically connected senator in another state.
Last word from Christina. Coming up on deck, we're going to look at New York State's red ink problem. We're going to be joined by Governor David Paterson, along with Woody Johnson, a special edition of Playmakers when Scoreboard continues. And still, we want to know what you think. A government-run healthcare system, is that a buy, a sell, or a hold? Let the folks behind you in the Capitol hear your answer. Dial in to Fox Biz. That's 369-249.